Okay, great. All right. So thank you everybody again for being here today. My name is Diane Doherty. I'm the Executive Director of Your Safe Place, an agency in San Diego that provides support to those who are being harmed by domestic violence, sexual assault, sex trafficking, intrafamily violence, and elder abuse. And so we'll talk more about that at the end as a resource. But today we're going to primarily be talking about dating violence, especially when it relates to teenagers. And so you may hear me use the acronym TDV, which means teen dating violence, or DV, which means domestic violence. And you may be familiar with terms like intimate partner violence or relationship violence. Really, these are all the same things that we're going to be talking about. But before we begin, I just want to address two quick housekeeping matters. One, I wanted to just say that this can be a hard topic and sometimes triggering for people. So if at any time you have to take a break or shut down and walk away, that's totally fine. Please take care of yourself. And then second, I can't really see any of you. So if you have a question, Fran's going to help me out and let me know if you have any questions. All right, so let's jump right in. I'm going to share a story with you as to why this is so important, really, for youth to be learning. When I was a prosecutor, I worked in criminal court for many, many years where adults were convicted of domestic violence, and they were required to attend a year-long training program about domestic violence, what are the triggers, and how do you respond when you're feeling angry. And at the end of those 52 weeks, the judges would often ask the defendants, well, what did you learn in those classes? And I can't tell you the number of times where a client, a defendant would say, well, this should have been a required class in school. I wish I'd learned this in grade school. And so I'm sharing this story with you to help us all understand why learning about domestic violence, especially in those teenage years, is so important to really help stop any type of unhealthy behavior, violent behavior before it starts. So during the teenage years, of course, many people are learning the skills to create relationships with others. And schools often aren't teaching about it. So this is an ideal time to learn about healthy relationships and to really stop those unhealthy patterns and habits before they turn into something that may exist during an adult relationship. And so this is why we're all here today. So I want to accomplish two things today. I want to talk about awareness so that you can understand what teen dating violence is, how prevalent it is, and then I want to talk about how we can work together to prevent it. I'm going to talk pretty fast, so if you need to stop me with questions again, jump in. So before we start, let's talk a little bit about what is teen dating violence and what are some of the things that are unique to teen dating violence, and then we're going to play a little game. So teens face some unique obstacles that adults don't have to deal with, right? So some teenagers have distrust of adults, right? They don't have good relationships with adults. Some teenagers lack knowledge about what is violence. They don't even understand what an unhealthy or abusive relationship is. Some teenagers don't have the financial resources to access help, or some don't have cars or transportation to get to the resources. Teens may also not want to talk to adults or others because they fear that other people will find out, that there's a lack of confidentiality, that there may be mandated reporting laws, or their parents might find out, and they don't want their parents to find out. And we're going to talk a little bit about the parent-teenage knowledge gap shortly. And then teenagers have a lot of peer pressure today to be in relationships, right? It's all over social media, what it is to be in an intimate relationship. And unfortunately, the media often portrays unhealthy behaviors. So these obstacles can really raise barriers for teenagers to, one, recognize that they're in an unhealthy relationship, and then to know what to do about it. So we're going to talk about how we can remove some of those barriers. So let's start with our game. So you're going to have to kind of unmute yourselves and yell out. I want this to be interactive. You guys do not want to be listening to me the whole time. All right. So when you hear violence, what are some of the things that you think about? What are some of the categories of violence? So please unmute yourself and participate. I have a shy group today. I hope you're going to warm up, or this is going to be boring.
I don't know if they can unmute themselves. They're raising, there's people who are raising.
Oh, okay. Can you put it in the chat, and maybe Fran, you can yell it out for me?
Sure.
It looks like two people have their hand raised.
There's nothing in the chat that I can see.
All right. So I'm going to feed you the first answer, and then I hope you guys will start to participate. So some of the categories of teen dating violence, for example, are what we see in these photographs here, right? People often think of the physical violence, the hitting, the punching, the shoving, the slapping, the kicking and strangling. It's when it's an intended use of physical force to cause fear or assert control over another. But there's also emotional and psychological abuse, right? That name calling, the spreading rumors, the shaming, and all of that emotional and psychological abuse can often be more harmful than even the physical abuse, where you are really damaging the other person's sense of self-worth, how they feel about themselves. There's also that verbal abuse. And this is very, very high and common in teen dating violence. You know, the screaming, the yelling, the ridiculing, the name calling. And then, of course, we have sexual abuse, any type of sexual activity where there is no consent, kissing, intercourse, prohibiting the use of contraceptions or tampering with them. And then the really big one today, which we're going to take a deeper dive into, is digital abuse. And this is particularly exploding as we moved through COVID, and it is continuing as we move out of COVID. Now, there are other areas of violence or abuse as well, such as financial abuse, using children as a means of power and control, immigration status. But these are kind of the biggies that we're just going to talk about for right now. All right, next question, and I hope you guys will participate. Actually, let me talk about the definition of teen dating violence first. So all those behaviors that you just identified or that we just talked about, it's really centered around power and control. It is when one person is deliberately using abusive and manipulative tactics to gain power and control over another. So here's the definition that the Teen Dating Violence Committee, which is a subcommittee of the San Diego Domestic Violence Council, that we made. Teen dating violence is a pattern of violent, coercive, or manipulative behaviors to gain power and maintain control over another person in a relationship. So what does that look like? It looks like when one person in the relationship is making all the decisions in the relationship. That person is deciding what happens in the relationship. And the other partner in the relationship lacks any autonomy or independence or doesn't get to make any of their own decisions. It may look like they can't text their mom because the controlling partner is monitoring their phone, or they can't freely talk to their friends because their controlling partner is always standing there kind of overseeing and monitoring them. So teen dating violence is rooted in power and control when one person has the power and the control over the other partner, okay? So I want to pause, for a moment and talk about relationship, because relationship, when we use that term, can look very different when we're talking about teenagers, right? So when we, us older people, think about relationships, we think about maybe someone who's married or formerly married, or dating, or someone who was matched up on a dating app, or friends with benefits, or someone who had a one night stand, someone with whom we've hooked up. Now, teenagers are often going to define a relationship differently, right? An adult may say, oh, you're in a relationship with so-and-so. And they're like, no, we're not. We're just talking, or we're just friends. Or on the other extreme, parents may be very dismissive of what a teen views as a very serious relationship, where the parent may view it as, oh, it's just a phase, or it's just puppy love, right? So we have to be very cognizant that we are using different terminology and we are interpreting relationships differently. But no matter how we describe it or define it, when you have this pattern of power and control in a relationship, it's something that needs to be taken seriously and addressed no matter how you define that relationship. Okay, now we're going to go back to our quiz. So how many high school students have been or will be in an abusive relationship? 1 in 25, 10, or 3? And I don't know if there's a way for anyone to answer this. Maybe hold up your fingers if you turn on your camera.
So they're going to put it in the chat and then direct message it to me. There's some technical issues going on.
All right, so I'm going to answer it. So 1 in 3, and that is just a staggering number, right? If we looked at who's here today, we looked at one picture on the left and one picture on the right, that would mean statistically that one of us is involved in an abusive relationship, right? And there's this myth out there that teen dating violence doesn't happen very often, or it's a problem with adults. It's hard to picture teenagers engaged in teen dating violence, right? But the reality is that it's very common. All right, Rich is correct. Nearly 1 in 4, 10 or 12 teenagers have been victimized through technology. I'm going to just go through them because we are having technical issues. All right, so
we have two answers. We have a 25 and then a 1 in 10.
okay. So the prior answer was 1 in 3, and this one again is 1 in 4. So this statistic is an old statistic. It's pre-COVID. It is actually, I think, a staggering number, but it is probably worse today. It's just that nobody has done any updated studies. When you think about teenagers, their main form of communication is tech, right? It's using their phones, it's emails, it's social media. So we're going to talk a little bit about digital media and digital abuse in just a moment. So I'm going to skip over this kind of quickly. All right, what percentage of teenage girls who are abused remain in the relationship? 50, 80, or 62%? And I'm going to wait for Fran to give me some feedback here.
80.
Anyone else?
80.
Okay, here, I've got the chat going now.
62.
All right, good. So the answer to this question is 80%, right? And everyone always asks that question, why would someone stay in an unhealthy relationship? Well, there's lots of reasons why people stay in unhealthy relationships. Again, like we talked about before, maybe they don't recognize that it's even an abusive or a violent relationship. Maybe the teenagers feel hopeless or ashamed, or maybe they're blaming themselves. Maybe they're traumatized and they don't know what to do, and so they're stuck in that relationship. Maybe they feel like no one can help them. Maybe they fear for their family. Sometimes the person who is in power and control in the relationship is threatening the animals in that family or the other family members in that family. Sometimes victims even feel like they deserve that abuse. It's what they know. Maybe they grew up in a household or they've been in a neighborhood that's what is the norm. So just remember that on average, it takes a victim about 7 times to leave a relationship before they do so for good. So there's a lot of back and forth as people try to leave these unhealthy relationships. Good. Okay, so the most severe injuries, including death, are most likely to occur when the victim A is trying to leave or has recently left the relationship, B has posted a selfie with another person, or C, the couple is arguing after drinking alcohol. What do you think? A, B, or C? Throw your answers in the chat.
A.
Excellent, good. You know, I get C a lot of times, but A is the right answer. So again, people are going in and out of relationships 7 times on average, but the most dangerous time for that victim, and it should be done with a safety plan with support from local agencies or other people who can provide this service. It should be done with a safety plan so that they can have that support from the family, from maybe the school, from the community. And we want to make sure that anyone leaving a relationship does so safely, because this is indeed the most dangerous time. And we get a lot of criminal police cases when someone is breaking off or leaving a relationship. Excellent. Okay. So ages 16 to 24 are actually the age period when most youth are exposed to or experience teen dating violence, but it actually can start as early as 12 years old. And these unhealthy relationships, you know, once they start in these early teen years, they can last a lifetime. And some teenagers think that, you know, some behaviors like name calling or teasing are normal and are part of a relationship. But what happens is these behaviors become normalized, and then they escalate and they develop into more serious forms of violence and then continue into the adult relationships. So we really need to nip it in the bud, so to speak, in these teen years. And I'm going to just go very quickly through these because we're in San Diego. You know, the statistics that I've been sharing are national. But when we look at the San Diego studies that have happened, this is from a 2005 study where 1,700 San Diego youth between 11 and 18 were surveyed. And these are some of the findings. And, you know, many of the youth believed that some type of dating abuse, they were engaged in it, they thought it was okay, they experienced sexual assaults. Some of them said they were keeping track of where their partners were. This is very common behavior. 1 in 3 said violence was okay sometimes. If it was a situation where one partner was flirting, or again, they were breaking up, right? Or one party was under the influence. Remember that section C to the answer to the earlier question. So again, these behaviors, when you look at them, start to become normalized. So what's the conclusion? What do we draw from all these statistics? Unfortunately, the conclusion that I draw is that a lot of this behavior is normalized, it's accepted, and that leads to higher perpetration. So we need to become more aware and educated about what teen dating violence is, what it looks like. And so today we're going to focus on digital abuse. And so you may ask, why are we focusing on digital abuse? Well, during COVID, as I mentioned, it really exploded. And technology is a predominant way that teenagers relate, and it's the center of their lives, right? How many teenagers are walking around with phones in the center of their faces? And so it's how they meet, it's how they make plans, it's how they communicate. In 2010, they did a study of teenagers 12 to 17, where they determined that on average, teenagers between 12 and 17 sent 100 texts a day. Now that study was done 11 years ago, right? Pre-COVID. And so with all the new messaging apps that they have today, Apple, DMs, etc., the pollsters can't even determine the number and the frequency of texting today. And these are platforms not only for communication, but also for digital abuse. So earlier in this slide, when we were doing our Jeopardy question, if you recall, what is the statistic? 1 in 4 teenagers are experiencing some type of digital abuse, digital harassment, right? And so digital abuse, again, like all the other forms of abuse, physical, verbal, psychological, is again rooted in that concept of power and control, where one person has more power over the other in the relationship. Okay, so again, just a few statistics just to share the prevalence of cyber and digital abuse. So when one talks about tampering, what does that mean? Tampering with a partner's social media account. That is actually the most prevalent form of digital abuse. More than 1 in 12 teens said that their partner has used their social media account without their permission. Now, think about if someone was using your social media account without your permission, how violating that would feel. But 1 in 12 teens are experiencing this. Also, acts of sexual digital abuse are the second and third most reported complaints by teenagers. Approximately 7% of teenagers say their partner texted them or emailed them asking them to engage in unwanted sexual acts. That's a pretty staggering statistic. And then 51% of girls and 18% of boys say that they have received pressure from their partner to send those sexy messages or photographs. And then unfortunately, as it's normal across all different forms of abuse, the LGBTQIA+ community tends to experience higher levels of abuse. So we really need to pay special attention to that community. So this slide here, I just want to really share with you, once you're starting to see one type of abuse, there's more often than not other types of abuse going on. So if you see someone experiencing physical abuse, probably the other things that are happening are the psychological abuse, maybe sexual coercion, that digital abuse. These forms of abuse very rarely happen in isolation. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what digital abuse looks like. And I want you to remember that with technology, all of these behaviors and this abuse is happening behind the scenes. It's not like a physical punch where you can see that, right? It's not like verbal abuse where you can hear it. This is stuff that is often hidden in, behind screens. It's hidden in the shadows, and adults and other people around us aren't seeing it. And that's why I think this is a really particularly dangerous form of abuse for teenagers. All right, so let's talk with cyber spying. So what is cyber spying? What does this look like? So examples of this is when one partner uses technology to spy on the other. So for example, one partner may demand their other partner's passcode, right? So they can access their social media accounts or their emails. They may say something like, if you don't have anything to hide, what's the big deal, right? Those who are engaging in this power and control behavior are very intentional and manipulative about how they do it, right? They create these situations where it looks like they love the person or they're caring for the person, but really it's about power and control. So when you exchange a password, it's viewed sometimes in teen relationships as a way to show your commitment or your trust. But remember, abusive partners can use that password or that access to snoop long after the relationship is over. Another way that this might present itself in a relationship is when one partner blocks websites or apps. They may say something like, oh, you shouldn't go on that website. I'm just looking out for you. I'm just looking out for your best interest, right? Or another example may be when one partner restricts who their partner is contacting, which friends are associating with. Oh, baby, don't talk with them. They're not good for you. So again, couching this in care and concern. But the partners also use technology to isolate and control their partner, to prevent them from communicating with their loved ones, those people who can really support them when they're experiencing this type of abuse, but they are pushed aside. And so this harm-doing behavior by the partner can exhibit itself also in an angry and in a jealous way, such that, if they are viewing their partner's emails and texts, and maybe someone from the opposite sex or the same sex, if it's a same-sex couple, is texting them or emailing them or on their social media account, it can provoke that partner who is engaged in the harm. And so it creates then that need for controlling their partner even more. All right, so cyber spying is one example of digital abuse. Another example is harassment, that constant messaging, right? And it's not again about concern, but this is where you're kind of getting interrogated. As the person receiving the text, you might get texts like, where are you, baby? Who are you with? What are you doing later? When are you going to be done? How late are you staying out, right? And so again, in these unhealthy relationships, it's the abusive partner feeling like they're entitled to know where their partner is, who their partner is with. And this relentless form of questions, it's really an interrogation. It's not a display of concern. It's not, in fact, they're concerned at all, but really it's jealousy. Often it's accusatory. Sometimes the text might turn into, hey, I saw you looking at her. Don't deny it, right? And although jealousy is very much a normal part of a relationship, it's a normal feeling, when this jealousy is presented or used in an accusatory way or an unhealthy way, it's really, again, about that power and control. It's not about love. It's not about care, but again, it's insecurity. And so what happens to the victim, and I don't like to use that term, but I'm going to use it for ease of the conversation right now, is that victim feels like they can't be separated from their phone. So maybe your sister all of a sudden at the table always has to pick up the phone as soon as it dings or rings, or your son takes their phone now to bed and sleeps with it under the pillow. Because if they don't respond immediately to that text or that call, they get accused. Hey, how come you didn't call me back when I called you? Or how come you didn't respond when I texted you, right? So those abusive partners may start to insist upon immediate responses, and they may demand that their partner FaceTime them throughout the day so that they can see what their partner is doing and control who their partner is talking to. They want that 24/7 access to control their partner. So the victimized person really feels like they need to be available at all times. And imagine what that starts to do to your psyche, right? Always being on high alert, always walking on eggshells. And so again, it's creating very unhealthy patterns. So another form of digital abuse is when we start to use these platforms for cruelty, for bullying, for intimidation. Maybe they're using it for humiliation. And this is especially true after parties break up. Teenagers are trying to navigate what their relationship looks like. Maybe they break up, and so now it's a form of retaliation. And so maybe the abusive partner hacks into the social media account, starts posting embarrassing posts or those nude pictures that were sent and exchanged, or maybe they're posting messages that are not true. So really trying to manipulate the partner through unhealthy means, through their phone, through their emails, through their social media accounts. And this is actually more prevalent than I think most parents realize. All right. So another form of cyber abuse and what it looks like is monitoring or stalking. So I think this is really interesting because when I teach to youth, I will ask them, okay, I want to hear all the different ways that if you were in a dating relationship, your partner could track where you were. And the youth just start like shouting out all these different social media platforms and means, and half of them I haven't even heard of. And they yell out GPS and other apps in your car, on your phone, internet usage, social media pages, blogs, the ghost mode on Snapchat, which I didn't at the beginning, way long ago, didn't even know what that was. On Find My Friends, on Facebook, on Yelp check-in. I mean, they just start yelling on tagged photos. But these are all ways that a manipulative partner can track. Who is my partner with? Where are they? What are they doing? Who are they hanging out with? These are all means where the power and controlling partner can demand that their partner also share their location. Hey, you said you were going to the movies. Prove to me that that's where you are. Hey, you said you were going to the beach, but I can see you're downtown. Who are you with? Right? So again, it's a means of tracking them and monitoring them and knowing what they're doing all the time. Again, that 24/7 access and knowledge. So again, note that when an abuser is asking these questions, they may try to justify their behavior. Well, I'm asking these questions to make sure that you're not cheating. But this is really about power and control. It's about unfounded accusations of cheating, shifting the blame to the victimized partner, further isolating them and discrediting them. And again, remember, these are very intentional barriers. They're very sneaky ways where the abusers are using social media, using technology, to really exercise that power and control, but they're going to present it to their abused partner in a protective manner. For example, the partner may say, hey, baby, I'm going to drive you to the airport. I don't trust those Uber drivers. But it's really not about the Uber drivers, right? It's about that controlling partner ensuring that they know where their partner is going, what they're doing, and when they're doing what. So again, power and control is what's at the root of all of these behaviors. So another and a last example that I'm going to share today, form of digital abuse, is sexting and sexual coercion. And again, this is one of those top forms of digital abuse that we talked about at the beginning. So a couple ways this presents itself. That abusive partner may send sexual pictures to the other partner that the other partner didn't ask for or didn't even want. The controlling partner may make sexting demands and pressure their partner to send compromising pictures or photos. Come on, baby, I love you. You send those to me if you cared about me. But I want to just caution every youth out there who may be listening right now that if anything can shift power dynamic in a relationship, it is sending pictures that are nude or compromising of the other. Because you send that picture and you now lose control, and your partner, who may be abusive or may be healthy right now, and maybe at some point you break up, and then those pictures become a retaliatory tool. Those pictures can go everywhere and anywhere, and you have no control over them anymore. And there is nothing that can shift that power dynamic more than as soon as you send out that nude photo or that compromising text. And so a lot of youth say, well, what should I do instead? How can I, satisfy my partner? I think there's a lot of different things you can do. Maybe you take a picture of a negligee, for example, or something like that. Or you send something where your face isn't in it, or no tattoos, or anything that can be designated as who is this person. I think there's a lot of ways to do this to satisfy your partner if you feel you have to do it. I would recommend that you not do it, but many teens aren't going to listen to us adults and are going to do it anyway. Don't include your face. Don't include any identifying parts of your body. And then I'm just going to mention very quickly trafficking. So trafficking is when one person is forced into sex, acts for money or other items of value. Most teenagers really believe that the deceit involved in trafficking would never happen to them, that their partner would never do that to them. But it does happen, and it happens a lot online. It happens in most schools in San Diego. There was a study done by Point Loma Nazarene University where it recognized that trafficking is actually happening in every high school in San Diego, which is really sad. And during COVID, the exploitation online just took off. So again, this trafficking is a way that digital abuse can happen as well. All right, so digital abuse is about power and control. Again, it's when one person is using power and control to gain control of the other, to control their behaviors, to embarrass them, to devalue them. And that's what digital abuse is about as well. So this is a neat little slide where you can see how it kind of progresses. It starts really slow. Maybe someone's showing their love. And what teenagers don't realize is that it progresses to jealousy, possession, excessive texting. And so these tactics become increasingly harmful, increasingly entrenched in the relationship. And so you just got to keep an eye on your children's phone, and youth, if you are on your phone and engaged in experiencing this type of behavior, let's talk about what we can do about it. Okay, so you teenagers, you're experiencing it, you're witnessing it with your friends, parents, you may be seeing it. What are some things we can do to prevent teen dating violence? Well, all of you are here, okay? So one thing, you're learning about it, you're increasing your awareness, and that in and of itself is huge. So pat on your back, congratulations. What else can you do? So let's start to talk about what are the warning signs? What are some things that you can look for when you are keeping an eye on a relationship? So you want to watch for some red flags. You want to watch for harmful or insulting communication. This is a little bit easier because it's out there in the open when it's verbal. But when it's on the phones or in social media accounts, you can't see it. So parents, dig in there, get in there, see what your kids are doing. It also looks like when you see one party in the relationship mistreating the other. Maybe they're not respecting the feelings or the physical safety of the other. Maybe they're making fun of the other partner in front of other people. Maybe you see those accusations of flirting or cheating when it's definitely not true, okay? Now you'll see abusers deny this behavior, deny these tactics, and then try to shift the blame onto the victim for the harm that they are actually engaging in. And then, of course, whenever you see that methodology of control where there's no equality in the relationship, where one partner is always deciding what they do. We're going to go to the beach today. We're going to go to the movie with my friends, not your friends. If you see a shift in behavior, that is a huge warning sign. When all of a sudden your child is no longer playing sports or no longer engaged in those community groups that they were a part of, or they're dressing differently. Maybe they're now being told by their partner how to dress. Now they are more withdrawn. So when you see that isolation, when you see that change in behavior, those are big warning signs. Okay, when you see obviously anything that a mark or a bruise, and there's a story about how the teenager got that, but the story doesn't match the bruise. Dig in a little bit deeper. When you see those mood swings, when you see that shift in behavior, as I talked about, or again, you see that extreme jealousy or possessiveness, these are all warning signs. It's something unhealthy, maybe not abusive yet, but definitely something unhealthy is happening, and it's time to step in and start to direct that teen to some resources. All right, so digital abuse warning signs, what are you looking for? Just like I talked about earlier, when all of a sudden your child can't leave their phone alone, right? It always has to be next to them at the table or under their pillow. They feel like they always have to account for where they are or respond to those texts or phone calls immediately, especially when it's at unreasonable times of the day, while they're sleeping, during meals. And you see that the other partner is displaying anger when there's not that immediate response. When you see those messages, because you're checking your child's phone, my kids would kill me, but I always tell parents, check your kids' phones. And you see those insulting or demeaning texts or emails or voicemails. When all of a sudden you as a parent or as a friend are blocked from a friend's account, which you've always had access to, something may be going on there. When all of a sudden you see tracking devices installed on the phone where your child or your friend is now always sharing their location, you know, what's going on there? Why does somebody need to know their whereabouts all the time? When all of a sudden you see that someone else has access to your youth's phone, right? They're able to post things, they're able to take things down. You know, why does your youth's partner have their password? Okay, so these are all, and again, when you see those explicit photos or messages, these are all warning signs. And again, remember, this is all happening behind the scenes, and it's being done through sneaky means where one partner is saying, well, I'm trying to help you with your social media account. You don't have it set up right. Or, hey, give me your password so I can get in there and help you post these pictures, right? being presented as a helpful tool versus really that power and control, which is the real intent here. So why is it important to learn all these warning signs? Well, this is a statistic that I think if you take nothing else today, remember this. This is really important because teenagers are not talking. Okay, when you look at teenagers who are talking, only 33% of those who are in some type of abusive or violent relationship ever told anyone about abuse. Most teens we know are not talking to adults or parents, they're talking to their peers. Again, we talked about this before. Why? Maybe they're afraid, maybe they don't recognize it, maybe they blame themselves, maybe they feel guilty. But the other concerning thing is that parents think they know what's going on. They think they know when their teenager is in an abusive relationship. Some parents don't even recognize all of the signs or the behaviors themselves. So this is why it's really important for us as friends, as adults, as peers, as counselors, whatever your role and relationship is with the youth, to really start paying attention to those red flags, because there's a big gap between teens and adults, creating a situation where we can't help and get involved with those in abusive relationships because we're not recognizing what's going on and we're not talking about it. So if you are in a situation where you're saying, okay, I know the red flags and who and what am I looking for? Well, you know, there's all kinds of classifications, like which teenagers are most at risk. And there's all kinds of stereotypes. But what I'm going to present to you is everyone. Every teenager you should assume is at risk of an abusive relationship. Is that the case? Absolutely not. But if you look at every relationship as one where, is this something I should be keeping an eye on? Then you will not miss the signs, right? Whereas if you are just looking at certain relationships, oh, well, only relationships that come from abusive homes are going to repeat that behavior. Well, that's not true. Instead, look at every relationship, keep your eye on every relationship and think, is that teenager at risk? And then that way you won't miss anything. All right, this is the most important means of prevention, is wrapping those teenagers in strong, supportive networks, where there's people they trust, where there's people they respect, where there are people checking in on each other, listening without judgment, listening with empathy, stepping in when necessary. When you see that child sitting by themselves afternoon after afternoon or day after day at the lunch table, try to wrap them in these supportive networks so that you can help keep them safe from any partner who may come in, and view that as a vulnerable situation that they're going to come in and maybe start to try to engage them in a relationship. Okay. So the other thing we always have to think about is that we have to remember that when a teenager finally reaches out for help, that they are reaching out for help, and that takes a ton of courage. And so that when they finally do, we have to be very open, listening patiently, listening without blame, remembering that the abuse is not their fault. And if the abuser is reaching out for help, we have to remember that we have to address both sides of this relationship, or that abuse is just going to move on to the next partner. So we have to be very, very clear in when we're talking to youth that we are listening to them without judgment. And if the abuser is talking to you and they are minimizing their behavior, try to refocus it and say, you know, well, what do you think it felt like for the victim? How do you think it impacted the victim? And so even when you feel like you're not doing any good, just by listening and having those conversations, you are doing something. You are creating that supportive network. You are showing care, and you're already doing a lot. Remember, teens aren't talking. So if they do reach out to you, please take advantage of that. All right. And then don't ignore the abuse. If you see something going on and you do nothing, your silence is telling both the abuser and the victimized person that that behavior is okay. If something doesn't feel right, if something looks like it's wrong, please step in and don't ignore it. Be an upstander. So here are a couple of connections for teenagers to resources, a couple of hotlines, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about my organization, Your Safe Place, which is right here in San Diego. I'm going to talk pretty quickly because I want to save some space at the end for questions. in case you have any. So we're a safe, confidential space. We provide services to teenagers. We're free, we're comprehensive. And we again serve, as I mentioned at the beginning, those engaged in teen dating violence, domestic violence, sex trafficking, sexual assault, any of those types of relationships. We are here with supportive services to assist you. So one of the very first things that we do whenever someone walks into our center is we provide them with safety planning, because remember, it takes 7 times on average to leave an unhealthy relationship. So a lot of times when people leave our center, they're going right back into that relationship. So we want to arm that person with a safety plan so that if something happens, they have steps that they can take to keep them safe. And we will always address whether or not there are guns in a relationship, because we have some services here where we can address that issue as well. So here we have a kids club. If anyone is ever coming in with youth, we want to put the young kiddies in these rooms so that they're not sitting there listening to these stories of what's happening. And it just gives them an opportunity to play and have fun and not have to listen to these stories of abuse and harm. And it gives the client who's coming in for assistance privacy, and so that they don't get distracted and can really focus on the services that they've come in to get. So we have all kinds of counseling, and I really encourage anybody in an abusive relationship to engage in counseling. Again, it's free. We have it for teenagers. We have individual groups. We have groups for boys and men at 17 and older. And then we also have coming on board, I hope in January, counseling with therapy dogs, and the teenagers in particular love that. So these are some of the flyers for our support groups and our counseling groups. I'm happy to send any of these to you if you'd like it. We have an adult Spanish speaking group, so I'll go over that quickly. These are some of our rooms where we meet. We have our therapy sessions where we engage in our counseling and support groups. We also provide legal services for anybody needing a restraining order. Maybe there's questions about immigration. That's often a tool of abuse, where if you don't do what I say, I'm going to report you and you're going to get deported. So when you want to come in and consult with an immigration attorney, it really gives you back some of that power and control, just learning about your rights and your awareness. These again, if you are going to Zoom into a court hearing because you don't want to go to the restraining order hearing, for example, you can do that from the safety of our center as well. And then for sex trafficked victims, we have very specific legal and social services available. We have, for those who are being harmed by abusers to an extent that they are at risk of homicide, we have a very high intense team that works and provides very significant wraparound services. If somebody has been engaged with law enforcement and they want to come in, they want to talk to a detective, or they want to get a copy of their police report, we may be able to help them with that. Youth is a little bit different because they're out of a different division. For someone who's been sexually assaulted or who has been harmed to a significant degree, maybe they've been strangled, at the request of law enforcement, we can also do forensic medical exams. Again, we have a special relationship with the San Diego City Attorney's Gun Violence Unit, so that if there is a gun involved in the relationship or in the trafficking situation, which is very common, we can work to get those guns removed. We also have, for those who are engaged in maybe some job interviewing in our financial independence program, or they're going to court and they need some nice clothing, we have some professional clothing. On the other end, we also have a emergency needs room where we can provide those hygiene items, those casual clothing, and services in that regard. We have all kinds of social services very quickly. We have CalFresh, CalWIC, if you need transportation assistance. If you have a child of your own and you need some help maybe with parenting or nutrition, we can provide that assistance. And then if there's a situation where you need housing or shelter, we can provide that assistance as well. We try to look at people as whole people, not just the harm that they're engaged in, providing things like maybe you want to park pass so that you can go to Balboa Park and enjoy an afternoon at the museum. Sometimes you get baseball tickets from the Padres. We have literacy services here, whole family wellness programming, and the like. And then again, if you have a court appearance and you want to practice, we have a mock courtroom here. If you want to make your address confidential for some reason, we have that opportunity here as well. These are some of our survivors. It clicks through, who have gone through, who received services, counseling, and they are now thriving members of San Diego. So healing and coming out on the other side, although when you're in it, feels like it's impossible, it is possible. You just need to be wrapped in services. These are some of the programs that we engage in for the youth of our children: backpack drive, holiday drive, and Halloween, which we just did. We have a holiday Christmas party coming up if anybody's interested in volunteering. And then many of you are from a lot of different agencies here in San Diego, and we provide services to outside agencies all the time because we really specialize in these needs. So if you have any questions or need assistance, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can also refer clients to us in this warm handoff manner with a telephone call. We have a referral form, or people can just walk in. We are fully open. We provide services on a walk-in basis, an appointment basis, or just like we're doing over a Teams or a Zoom. We also provide tours if anybody wants to come and check us out. And I just want everybody to know our message to anyone feeling harm in a harmful relationship is that you're not alone. We are here for you. We are here to serve you. And we appreciate you trusting us because it takes a lot of courage to step up and ask for assistance. Here is my contact information, and Fran can share this with you if you need to reach out to me. Oh, I thought I had it on there. Maybe not. I can share that with you if you need it. I can put it in the chat. Feel free to either unmute yourself or ask if you have any questions.
Thank you, Diane. I think they're asking for the presentation, and I believe that has all been uploaded to the exhibitors booth. I'm still not able to access the chat, so we can just direct people to the platform of the conference, and all of the resources you sent me have been uploaded to there.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I'm just jotting down. Kristen has asked for the flyers. I like Erin's comment about tell someone you trust. That's really good advice. All right, I know I threw a ton of information at you all at once. It's a lot to absorb. I'm going to put my information here in the chat. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer those questions. So a high school age curriculum that is focused on building healthy relationships, I would recommend Love is Respect. They have a really good website with a lot of interactive tools. I was just going to say, I used to go out in the community and teach quite a bit. I will be very honest that my time is limited, but I can always connect you to other people who do go out into the high school age community, college age community, and do actually courses on healthy relationships. Oftentimes they will look like, what does a healthy relationship look like? What does it look like in the media? What is consent and how is it in relationships? And then how to be an upstander. I am available to speak as a guest speaker. I'm happy to do this. I think it's really, really important to build awareness. This is the only way we're going to stop this problem. So I would be delighted to come and present to anybody who would like me to come and present. My information is in the chat. And I'm sorry, my son is coming through the window, kind of making me look like a ghost. All right, and I think you guys have a very special 5-minute presentation also. Oh, it looks like I have a hand raised, sorry. I don't know if you can put your question, Dante.
Thank you for the presentation and all of the skills to pass on, because it's such important information. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
So now we have Stephanie, who's going to present on Live Well Schools.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I'm going to present on Tools for Schools resource database. Let me share my screen really quick. All right. Can you guys see my screen? Fran, are we?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so as I said, my name is Stephanie. I work with Live Well Schools. And here I'm going to provide a really short overview of a helpful online resource for those working with students in school, after school programs, and community-based organizations. So this is our Live Well Schools website. But the Tools for Schools is a resource database that is created by Live Well Schools. And that was done with two goals in mind. One was to provide information and resources to meet the immediate needs of students, staff, and families. And the second one is to provide information and data analysis to support long-term planning for healthy schools. So based on the stakeholders' feedback and from our partners, this resource database is now online. So you guys can, and I'll show it to you guys here in a few minutes, but it's a searchable format, so you can make it easy to find any resources for a wide variety of topics. And I can send you guys a link later so you guys can so you can go through this website. Really quick, some main things before I show you the resource database. So our focus areas, our focus areas include health equity, for sure, the main one, health equity, wellness policies, social and emotional wellness, and the ones that you see listed here below. Of course, chronic absenteeism, which is a big thing for schools. For the strategies down here, let's see. So we see that the strategies, our main ones are policy, partnership, programs, and local control and accountability. So those are the strategies that we want to achieve for healthy schools. So really quick, I forgot to mention that the resource database, let me click on it here. So the resource database is part of the Live Well Schools website, and it's an initiative of Live Well San Diego. And of course, it works to build the strength relationship between schools, districts, County of San Diego staff, and community partners. So here is the website, the page here for Tools for Schools, and I'm just going to scroll through it really quick so you guys can see. So basically, here is like a little description of what the resource database is. We also have provided a little description down here in Spanish as well. We have included that for our Spanish speaking population. So basically, this is the resource database, and it has a couple of columns. It provides the link for the resource, the description, the topics, because the resources can be for different topics as well, as we see in this column right here, the topics. And then we have this, we have it in Spanish as well. Also, there is on this upper left hand up here, we can show, if we want to show 10 resources, 25 or 100. And I forgot to mention that we do have like 336 resources on this database. So we have a lot of resources to provide. This research tip here on the top, there's key terms that you can use in this search box right here. So the purpose of this presentation that Diane gave talked about, of course, teen violence and relationships. So we're going to put in the word violence. All right. So it automatically brings up all of the resources that have to do with that. And I will click on one just to show an example. So this one is Center for Community Solutions, and it gives you the description at what it does. So it serves to heal and prevent relationships and sexual violence. So really quick, if you click on that link, it literally sends you to that resources, and you're able to look for more information there. So that's kind of how our resource database works. So we're always trying to continually add resources to our database. So I encourage you that if you think of a resource that you think should be on here and is not, please email Pam Smith, and her information is right here. Just let us know so that we can include it in our database. Okay, so I'm going to include, let's see, I'm going to include the Tools for Schools link in the chat. Let's see. Oh, okay, great. Deirdre has provided that on in the chat. So it's already there if you guys could see it. For schools. Great, thank you, Deirdre, for adding that. So please feel free to look through it. And again, if there are more resources that you think should be there, please let us know. And finally, one more thing that I wanted to mention, just as an added bonus, that here's a sneak peek of a funding opportunity that is coming soon with the funding from HHSA and San Diego County Office of Education. So they will offer a grant of $50,000 to $250,000 to eligible public schools and districts to implement health education in grades K through 12. Which is really good news, with the goal to develop health literature for students. So SDCOE anticipates opening the application for the funding in December, so here soon. For more information, you can contact Paige Metz at pmetz@sdcoe.net. So that is all the information I have for now. Thank you all for attending this session of the School Summit. Thank you so much.